Let me tell you before we start that the father in this parable is God. And the younger son is really any sinner. Now, in this parable, the son is really bad news, but it could be any sinner. And what occasions Jesus telling this parable is the fact that they're asking, why does your master Jesus, why does he eat with tax collectors? A tax collector could never enter the temple, was forbidden to. And sinners, these are public sinners, prostitutes, things like that. Why does he eat with them? Because to eat with somebody means, I want to be your friend. And they're saying, the Pharisees said, these people don't deserve a friend. What's he doing eating with them? What's he doing telling them that he wants to be their friend? And so that occasions this parable. Now, when the younger boy tells his father that he wants his share of the inheritance, you got your share of the inheritance when your father died, not before. And so what happens is the younger guy is telling his father, I wish you were dead. But since you didn't do me the honor of dying, please give me half of what's coming to me when you do. That's highly insulting to the father. And the father, by that fact, could disown him. But he doesn't. In fact, what he does is he gives him his share of the inheritance. Now, any Jew listening to this parable, so what's the matter with that guy? Is he goofy? Because he has insulted his father. As I say, he's really said, basically, I'm sorry you're not dead yet. But since you're not giving me half of what was coming to me when you die. Very insulting. But the father doesn't. And I say, any Jew listening to this would say, that father's an idiot. So what does this kid do? He goes down and he goes with pagans, with Gentiles. And the only job he can find is tending pigs. A pig is an unclean animal. A Jew should have nothing to do with any pigs. And this guy even, things had gotten to the point where he was ready to eat pig food. Now, you can't sink any lower than that. Really, even pig cobs. And so what happens is he's really at the depths of degradation. So what he decides, he said, my name is ruined. I'll go back and beg my father not to restore me as a son, but to restore me as a servant. Now that you had family, slaves, servants. That's where he wants to be. He wants to be called as a servant. He knows that his sonship, the father should not think of that. The father is watching for him. So the father is allowing for the fact that this guy may change his mind. Now the father runs to the son. Father shouldn't do that. That's non-father-like. It just should not be done. And it really makes the father look bad. He already looks like a pushover. Now he really does. What he does when he sees the son, as I say, he shouldn't run to him, but he does. And what he does is he restores him to full sonship. Any Jew hearing this would say, that guy's daft. He shouldn't even take him back as a hired man. He should reject him because of the shame he has brought to that family. Remember, the father in the parable is God the Father. The son, remember, is a sinner. It can be any sinner. It can be a great sinner. It can be you or me. It's a parable to tell how merciful God is. And so when this kid comes and he says, Father, make me as your lowest servant. Now, the father could disown him. Say, get the heck out of here. You've embarrassed us, you embarrassed the family, and you've embarrassed the village. But he doesn't. In fact, what he does is he brings a robe, which gives him back his honor. He brings a ring, which gives him authority. And he gives him shoes, sandals, which restores his dignity as a son. Slaves or hired people did not wear shoes. Once again, a Jew hearing this would be shaking his head. He's saying, this guy is really crazy. And so what he does, he restores him to what he was before, even though he has brought all of this shame, not just on the family, but on the village. The village would be up in arms against this father, saying, what is the matter with you? You should reject this little jerk. And you should send him back to the pig farm where maybe he can eat pig food. But the father doesn't. He restores him to what he was. No Jew could understand this. They absolutely would shake their head and they say, this guy is crazy. Does he know the humiliation he's bringing on himself? Not just the son, but the father. And so he restores him. The older son, now we're not quite sure who the older son is. But the older son, here's the party. The father's killed the fatted calf. Fatted calf was for the highest kind of party. And he's killed this over the return of his son. This guy comes in from the field. He says, I'm not going in. Now, the father could disown him for that. In this society, the fathers, it's a patriarchy. The father is the boss. If the father says jump, you say how high. This is not a matter of debate. And so the very fact that the older son tells him, I'm not going in, the father could disown him for that. But what does he do? He comes out and argues with him. He shouldn't do that. It's below the father's dignity. But he says, look, I've had you always. You've been loyal to me. But the older guy says, look, you killed a fatted calf for him after a life of a complete sinfulness. You've never even killed a goat. Now, goats were not a big thing to celebrate with. But he says, look, I've served you all these years. You don't even kill a goat for me and my friends. The father says, I have you always, and everything that I have is yours. But we had to rejoice because this son of yours who was absolutely in the depths of evil has turned and restored himself. And so we had to rejoice at that. And so the father, the older son doesn't think he should do it. Certainly any other members of the family shouldn't think he should do it. The village doesn't think he should do it. And they would turn their eyes away from him and say, that guy, he's daft. But no other reason why Jesus told this parable. Because the Pharisee said, why is it that your master, Jesus, eats with tax collectors and sinners, with people who are sinful, people we don't let tax collectors in the temple. And yet he invites them in to have a meal with them, saying, I'd like to be your friend. Calls Matthew, the tax collector, to be one of the 12 disciples. And so what God is trying to tell us, what Jesus is trying to tell us is, look, I'm kind of an easy mark. And if you look in the Gospels, what you'll find, go look for a place where Jesus condemns anybody. Only one place. Only one. Pharisees. And he does that after he's tried repeatedly to win them over. But even the last time he tries to win them over, they're already plotting with the Romans to put him to death. You know, if you're not watching the basketball this afternoon and you want something to do, go see if you find any place in the Gospels where Jesus condemns anybody. The young woman taken in adultery. Who else condemns you, he says, when they're all gone? And she says, no one. He says, that's right, I don't. Be on your way, just don't do this anymore. Today, we could have read the Gospel of the Samaritan woman. He meets her at the well. A Jew is never supposed to talk to a woman by herself. And he talks to her, and she says, you're talking to me, a woman? unaccompanied, and you're talking to me, a Samaritan whom the Jews normally hate? And he said, if you know who it was who speaks to you, you would ask for not water, but living water. And he says, go and call your husband. And she said, I don't have a husband. He said, no, you don't. He said, you've had 5, and the guy you're with now is not your husband. But does he say, and you're a tramp, and get out of my sight? No, he doesn't. He doesn't even tell her to leave him. He says, go and tell the Samaritans what you've seen here, and they all come out to see him. Because that is so highly unusual for a Jewish man to approach a Samaritan woman or any woman and offer this. It is told to you and me on this, I was going to say spring day in May. You wouldn't think of it if you go outside. But the point is, it's so you and I will know that the God that we love and serve is filled with mercy. You know, St. Thomas Aquinas says, as maybe you've heard me before, that the outstanding quality of love is mercy. The outstanding quality of love is mercy. And with mercy comes forgiveness, comes all kinds of virtuous things that God communicates to us and will do so when we're judged. When Jesus judges you and me, just remember, he said in St. John's Gospel, I haven't called you my servants, you're my friends. And we believe that in baptism, we receive the life of God himself. We call that sanctifying grace. But we believe that, therefore, that makes us sons and daughters of this Father whom Jesus is talking about. And brothers and sisters with Christ, and brothers and sisters with each other. And so, remember on the cross, those were bad guys, you know. I mean, you had to be bad to be crucified. The guy on his left says, get us out of here. The guy on the right says, have you no fear seeing that you are under the same condemnation as the Son of God? And he says, Jesus, have mercy on me. And our Lord says to him, this day, you will be with me in paradise. I'll depend on that. And I hope we all do. We've come, those of us who are older, have come through a time when Catholic theology was pretty negative. And I think maybe I've told you the story about one of our old guys. We asked him one time, how many people do you think are saved? Get to heaven. Goes out over to the window and scratches his chin. He says, 60%? That meant 40% went to hell. We don't think that anymore. And I'm sorry he did, because he's a great old guy. I hope he died in peace. 40% don't go to hell. And I think many more than 60% are saved. Many more. I think in hell, I don't know if anybody's there, but I wouldn't bet on Hitler or Joe Stalin. Maybe I shouldn't say, not even Putin now, but I let God judge Putin. I'm not going to judge him. Let's, as we go on, pray for this kind of confidence, kind of faith in the Father and in Jesus and the Spirit. That's all they tell us in the Gospels, and all they want you and me to do is to believe it. Amen.